Okay, I want to thank everybody, including Jay, for bugging everybody, the members, to come in and do these member talks. And we've had some excellent member talks, and this is volunteer. So Jeff has volunteered his time. It takes some time to put the presentations together. It takes a lot of nerve to get up here and present a lot of times too. So I want to thank Jay for bugging Jeff and Jeff for agreeing to do this. All right. So I'll let Jeff introduce his talk.
Okay.
So
All right,
keep that.
thanks. Right,
I usually put that in my pocket.
Like a
Okay.
this just goes anywhere here, Bob. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, can hear you good.
Can you hear me in here? Okay. Yeah. That's good. Okay. We'll get started. Let me just make sure this works. Live show, and you can see it online?
Yes. Well, no, we see you right now.
Oh.
Hit escape first, yeah,
Okay.
and then share the screen first.
It's there. Okay, I'm trying to maneuver myself. And now with this one.
Share.
So share.
See themselves now.
And now. And
There
now,
we go.
You can minimize the right side.
yeah, because you know where I am.
We'll just do.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thanks. Like Bob said, I'm Jeff. A lot of you know me around here that have been here for a while or not. Little bit about me. So I've enjoyed photography since college, got my first camera as a graduate, but I really didn't focus in on photography at all until around 2017 when I retired. I thought I took them all my life, but at that point it's like, okay, change my focus from IT, which was very logical, structured, used, and I forget which side of the brain that is, but switch to the other side of the brain that's more creative and focus on photography. So that's what I did. That's when I learned and moved my camera over to manual mode, learned a lot of the settings, took a lot of courses, joined the club. So that's how I really got into this. And I like photography because there's always something new to learn. So it's a great thing to focus on and spend some time on. Also like traveling. So traveled to a number of countries, not as much as I like to, but I did spend a lot of time, and a lot of you know, I spent a lot of time in India. So about 6 months, 8 trips since 2014. So really the trips to India is where I learned a whole lot of photography because I was traveling by myself with a driver, but my days were my own. So anything I wanted to do, how long I wanted to spend, I looked for opportunities. So I tried everything there. And that's where a lot of my photos are, like 38,000 are from India. So when I was putting the presentation together, you are going to get a number of India photos. That's why you're going to get India and US. So I wore an India top with US jeans. So yeah, so anyway, and traveling for me especially with a camera opens a lot of opportunities. I think it breaks down barriers. I don't know if that's everywhere. In India, it's great because everybody wants their photo taken. So as soon as you pop it out, somebody's going to talk to you. Somebody's going to say, take me, you're doing selfies, all that kind of stuff. But it did open many opportunities. Everybody I saw, I went in 2013, spent 6 weeks there. Didn't make a reservation because I stayed with people I met. And it's all people I met through the photography I did. So So it's been fun, and I like to use that to help other people here, especially learn about another area. So what is travel photography? And travel photography documents an area's landscape, people, culture, customs, history. It basically tells the story of an area. And when you're doing your travel photography, you're trying to look for things that what makes this place unique? How do I show that to other people? And so to be successful, you don't have to just have good photography skills. It's also you have to work on your storytelling skills because you want to convey that. And it includes all types of photography. So like I had on a previous slide, I like all types. So this is right down my alley because it gives you a chance to practice landscapes, portraits, sports, nature, wildlife, basically anything, because all of those things together help you define an area. And your images should be captured in a way that makes somebody want to go there, or at least be curious, because I think some of my images, people might say, I wouldn't want to go there. Why did you do that? But I like it because it tells a different story of a different place. And with travel photography, it doesn't have to be exotic trips. You don't have to go to the best places. You just have to leave your house. And travel photography can be done anywhere. So some considerations when you're traveling, like what are your goals for the trip? Are you trying to capture just a few images that are going to be prize winners? Or are you documenting your experience and everything about that? Or are you going to have an experience and you want to shoot a couple photos? There are different ways you can approach or think about your trip when you're starting to plan. And what do you plan to do with them? Are you planning to share them? Are you going to do a presentation and say to Jay, sure, I'll do one? Are you going to do presentations? Are you going to sell? Because there's implications if you're going to sell when you travel. So there's some things about that. And are you going to go alone or are you traveling with others? And like I said, in India, my time was my own. So as long as I wanted to spend somewhere I shot, which I did travel by myself. My wife still hasn't gone to India, but the next trip I took with her, I was like, oh, this is different because I'd be shooting and it's like there she is way down the road or somewhere else. So you realize you have to balance things. And especially if you are going to travel with others and you want to do photography, kind of look at your trip and see how you get a happy medium for that. So everyone has a good experience. And are you going to plan all the details or go with the flow? Like a few of you might realize, I'm sort of a planner. So I like to plan it all because I don't want to miss anything. And so plan morning, noon, and night. Sometimes it doesn't go as planned. And then all of a sudden we had went to New England, car broke down. And it's like, oh, lost that day, lost that hotel, and didn't get to that place. So, yeah, there's a good mix. I kind of am moving a little from the planning everything to at least plan some things and plan ahead for the next few things happening. But India, this last trip, I went 6 weeks. I planned 4 flights, to and from, and 2 cities, and that's it. And like my one friend says there, we'll figure it out. So I said to him, okay, we'll figure it out. So I did have teacher training for 4 weeks, which really that I knew where I was going to be, but nothing else I planned. So I had experiences that I wouldn't have had I planned every day. So some things, if you're going to plan and do some research, I know I've had a number of people say when they see sometimes on my posts, how'd you find that place? How'd you find that place? Google. It's like, I like doing sightseeing near wherever. It's near me, near if you're going over to Harrisburg, near this. or say top 10 things in this city, top 10 cities in this state. Yeah, all those ways are ways that start leading you on a path to your planning. And I use things like TripAdvisor, Viator, which is a sister site, I think, of TripAdvisor now. But they have a lot of tours. And the thing that's nice, when we went to Ireland, we used Viator and trains. So we did trains from city to city and then hop little bus trips to do all the sites, but then could spend free time doing the city. So that was a nice way to go. But even if you don't want to take the tours, those or look for local sightseeing tours, they say, here's all the things you should see here, or here's our itinerary. You have your ideas. So you start researching from there. Social media, I did a lot of connections with Instagram and things like that. So there's ways to research. You don't have to go nuts, but good ways to start looking for where you want to go. One thing I put important down here, days and hours, it seems obvious, but I always plan and then we look and it's like, oh, this national park or national historic site isn't open on a Monday or a Tuesday or in India, temples, they close during a certain time period during the day. And even the one we're going to visit in next month closes certain parts of it during these hours. So they actually leave I don't want to say idle. What do I want to say? Well, basically they leave it sleep for that time period. So you have to look at that and holiday schedule. That hung us up on our New England trip because we're liking to do state capitals. And we wanted to go to Boston, sort of forgot about Columbus Day, never even gave it a thought. It's like Christmas, Thanksgiving, okay. But Columbus Day, the state capital that we planned to go to that day was closed. But little fact, if you're ever traveling and you want to do state capitals and you're in New England on Columbus Day, New Hampshire does not follow that. So we swung a different route and picked up New Hampshire. And weather conditions too. When we've gone out west, we think, you think desert, it's going to be hot, everything else, and you sort of forget there's elevation. And we got caught in the snow several times. So other things when you're doing your research on your area. And then what should you take along? And that's personal, also goes along with the kind of photography you want to do and the things from the other slide on how you're planning. But your camera, your lenses. I think the biggest thing is beware of luggage restrictions, because that threw me off in India. I had a wonderful new camera bag. I had all this new gear, and I realized the camera bag almost weighed what my carry-on could weigh. And with the airlines I flew, they didn't allow a separate personal item. So everything had to count into that. So that bag stayed at home. It all went in a duffel bag. I packed like 3 or 4 times to figure out how to move things. And this is something I travel with now. It's a messenger bag, like $35 from Amazon. Between that,
Jeff, I don't think the Zoom people could see this, so just a call.
I thought they could.
They can
Yeah, I think they can.
Okay.
If not, it's a messenger bag, like 35, 40 bucks.
It's a podcast.
And I get a lot of these kind of things. So wraps. So I wrap the camera, wrap the bag, and so the equipment may have more than I want to travel with, but I take that, leave the equipment somewhere secure, and take what I want for the day. And it's also a laptop bag, and it carries books, and yeah, it's a nice way to go. You also want to consider, are you going to carry a laptop or not? And are you going to back up? And how are you going to back up? I do carry a laptop because I didn't when I worked. I thought it was kind of funny. I never traveled for work with the laptop, but when I retired, I started taking it because it's like now I use it. I wanted to say I couldn't connect to people, but
Which you have set your brain.
I did. So the laptop, I did a lot of that with hard drives. I take a couple hard drives and every night just back up from the card to the laptop and the hard drive. And then usually take enough memory cards that carry me through, but they're the kind of things to just consider, make yourself a list is the tip there. Cause I think I went to the shore once, had everything, was all excited and the charger was at home. It was like, man, I hope this battery lasts the whole week. It did. So that was good, but that was before mirrorless. So another thing to consider, what are you allowed to photograph? Yeah.
Carry on all your camera equipment, and you have any reservations about checking it in? Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question is, do I carry on all my equipment and any reservations with checking it in? Some reservations with checking it in, depending on your flight. I think the last time, it was a lot of juggling because I could have 2 pieces international, 1 piece domestic of luggage. So, and the carry-ons were bigger domestic. So it was a lot of juggling. So I put my cheaper lenses in my check bag, wrapped in my clothes. And I took whatever weighed what I could pass in the duffel. And then once I got through security, the laptop and everything else went in the small bag. So I actually had it. But yeah, you hear both things about, do you check luggage, do you check equipment? I mean, I wouldn't carry the big lens I have now because that would be it. I couldn't carry the camera body. So it's like, yeah, so you juggle. I don't know. I hear mixed things about, I hear lots of warnings of not putting it in your checked baggage. So other things to consider when you're at places, what are you allowed to photograph? So it's good to do a little research up front or that, or do some research on the culture too. So you might be able to, but you might offend somebody, and it's good to kind of know that. In the US, generally, you can photograph anything in public spaces. So people, anything is fair game. But yeah, not in other places, but also like in national parks, you can do travel photography. Don't take your drone, don't take your model, because they're not allowed, and they may be allowed, but you need special permission. But you could sell those images. Navajo Nation has a totally different thing. So you can, as long as your photography isn't commercial and you're going to earn something from it. So if you are, then you have to do a permit or do the exclusive photo tour, which is a lot more expensive. So 100 to 250 fee before you go in, which I found hard to do because it's like, well, what if nothing turns out? That was a waste. But now I got some things and it's like, I really liked them. It's like, I could probably do something with this so they can hang on my wall, but no one else's. Because I didn't do that, or I can pay $600 after the fact to sell it, but yeah, whatever. So, but that's any of the Indian nations. So that's the Antelope Canyons, that's Monument Valley. So just be very conscious of that kind of stuff, especially if you want to, depending what you want to do with your images. And I can create a little document with some of this stuff for the newsletter, but there's another site that has some things for rights as a photographer outside the country that also says about people and how you're going to photograph them and what you're going to do, and which country says it's okay, which one says, so that's it. But I think the main thing when you're traveling and doing people is be respectful of them. So main thing as you start to travel is capturing the place and the essence of the place. And you should be telling this story. And generally it's not just one image, but series of images. collectively tell the story of place. And it's a mix of geography, people, culture, festivals, everyday life, recreation, all that kind of stuff you want to do. So vary your shots. You're going to need some wide ones. Some landscapes, they kind of help you establish the sense of place. Where are you? And then get into more of the story, a lot of more of the medium things. And don't forget the details. Look for the small things that help to make a place unique. So always just in any kind of photography, and if you're on a trip, still pay attention to your compositions, your light, because if that stuff is, if you're effective doing that, you're going to be effective communicating what you want to through this story. And have fun, be creative. You never know what kind of things you're going to do that might help enhance an area, and be authentic. And this, are you an observer or a participant? And from that, I mean, from a photographer standpoint. So are you looking at things, taking them, or are you going in and changing stuff because it's going to work your photo better? You know, for me, I like to be authentic. I have some pictures, like I have one coming up with a leaf on a just wood. I don't think I moved that one, but I can't say. But generally, I don't. It's like I'll see something and it's like, oh, the light's catching that, neat. I'm going to do that. I don't set up the shots. And as far as participant, I'd say plunge in the environment you're in. So when your camera's down, be a participant. You know, be friendly with people. You know, do things, try things. So from authenticity standpoint, some of you have seen some of this, others have not. But I want to show this from, I'd say, authenticity, and give you an idea of the variety of shots that I did that helped to show that. This is my tour guide in Dharavi slum in Mumbai that you might know from Slumdog Millionaire. And when I went to tour it the first time, I thought, you know, you go into the place and you go in with, what are you expecting? You know, if I asked around here, what would you expect a slum to be? Probably get a lot of different answers, but I think of it as, here's a dirty place. It's depressing. Maybe it's pretty dangerous. Better carry my wallet in the front. Better, you know, all the things that go through your head of a dirty place, and lazy people laying around just taking in what they can, you know. And I went the first time and it's like, wow, yes, it's dirty, but there's a lot of people smiling in the slum. There's a lot of people working extremely hard because they have a lot of industry. They do a lot of recycling and redoing products. So, but I couldn't take any photos. So they're like, you can't take photos. So I'm like, so that you don't say that to a photographer, it's like your heart sinks. But I went through and I thought, I got to come back. So the next year I went back and I contacted the tour guide I was with and said, can I somehow photograph? And he said, I have a guy, Mohammed here, who can take you in. So he does photography tours. He lives there. So Mohammed took me in, and let me show you kind of an overview of what that area looks like and some of the photographs I took to capture it. So this is the area. This is a wider shot, looking at that with the background. And as you're observing, you know, from above, all the people. But then I wanted to show things like the streets. What does it look like? These are neighborhoods in the slum and homes. You know, what does that feel like? What do the factories and the people he's gathering raw materials for the factories out on the street, the glass, the wood. And these are some of the workers in the factories working. I think they were maybe metal. They're doing dyeing. It's definitely not a fancy place. They're intense. was a nicer shop. He was doing more embroidery. But what I wanted to do was really capture some of the people. So again, you have one impression of the slum. This is his workshop, the spinning wheel in the alley. But then looking more at the detail to look at the fine work that he does, and be able to show the products that he makes. So again, a way to show more, to tell that story and how people, what daily life is like. These guys reading the paper, or shopping for food. And the guy that's selling the food is the next one. Yeah, he's one of the salesmen of the spices. So again, just capturing different angles, the kids. I mean, the kids were happy and smiling and playing just like any other kids. So again, different impression, and happy to see me and excited for the camera. And final shot is just, this is the bridge, one of the bridges that crosses the railroad that leads you from Mumbai into the slum. And I just thought it was interesting watching these little kids with their school uniforms leaving. And I think of what that story might capture is, you don't know what's going to happen with these kids. Are these kids going to get an education? In my standpoint, I think right away, get an education and get out of the slum, but maybe they don't want to. Their families have lived there for many, many generations. And actually talked to my tour guide yesterday, and he said, "Hey, Jeff, I got married, I have a kid, and I finished my degree." So he was working on a degree like 6 years ago when I met him. So, you don't know, but hopefully those images give you a better feel of what is that place like. So again, how capturing place. So what does a place feel like? What makes it unique? You see landscapes that a lot of times give you a sense of awe. It's like, wow, where am I? And this is pretty neat. And so different times of day, weather conditions, when you're capturing landscapes, they're the establishing shots. They really help to get somebody knowing an area. So this is beach in Ocean City. And one thing I want to point out, if you see a star in the upper left-hand corner, I consider that day trippable. So it's within 3 hours of the goggle works. So there's a mix of photos in here, but some will give you an idea, what could I get without going too far? So, the beach, so you wanted to capture that warmth. Also like the textures on the beach that day to kind of give you a feel of a warm summer morning there. Or this is more up in the mountains. Actually, it was a terrible sunrise. I was up higher, like up here, and the fog was in the bottom, the clouds were in the top, and I couldn't see anything. It's like, and I got up early. My wife did not. She said, "You can go." So I went up waiting for the sun, just waiting for the sun. Finally said, "Well, the sun's up and I can't see it." So I was on the way down, and I thought there was one place I think I saw a break. And when I got around the corner, all these people were there with their cameras. It's like, this must be the break. So I didn't care if they were parking or not. I parked, hopped out, and got this. But again, it just gives you a different sense of what that's like, especially in the morning. Or this is up at Ricketts Glen. So you want to be there when you're telling the story of our area. And I don't always think of this, but fall, a lot of places you don't see fall color. So capturing fall color gives a better feel of place. And in Colorado, we were taking a train out to Silverton. So it was a snowy day. Yeah, neat train,
Durango.
neat place. Yeah, Durango to Silverton, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, and so the nice clouds, the snow, and the fall colors kind of give you a sense of place there. And weather conditions don't always cooperate. So we also had a lot of fog in Maine. But going out in the morning, it's like, I think I could go out and get something in this fog, and it does give you a very calm, peaceful, quiet, kind of moody kind of shot. And we hit snow. We thought we were going to be snowed in, but hit snow in Colorado at the Garden of the Gods. We didn't think we'd be out that day, but the morning sun came out and I said, again, I'm leaving. And I went for some morning shots of this, but it's like, wow, what an opportunity, because you wouldn't often see that in that kind of snow. And we hit rain one day leaving Grand Canyon, and it's like rain, but walked out. We went to the last pullover stop, and that was there. It's like, okay, not going to complain about rain anymore. So all these kind of weather conditions can really help you get a sense of the place you're in, and being creative about them can help somebody look at them and kind of get kind of a little enticed to travel there. I like to include things like this petrified forest. I like to often include like a path or a road in, because it helps bring you into it to start telling that story, whether it's there or in the middle of a forest. This was more of a walkway, a boardwalk through the woods. But again, the lines lead you into that story. And even down in like Hopewell, you have the view of this, but the road back there can help in your storytelling of the other areas of that community. And this probably you'll say, yeah, I know that train. Because the train that goes out to Silverton,
See the prairie dogs.
yeah, it goes on a horseshoe curve and you can get the train, but including other objects in your landscapes help add extra interest, whether it's the train taking you in or using a person as basically a compositional element. So it was a quiet sunrise that day, but I liked him because that gives a personal connection a little more when you see somebody, I don't know, subliminally, it takes you into that photo. Like I could be there. I wonder what it's like that morning. Same looking for reflections. They can help your broader landscape images or color. I like these. It was the road into Mesa Verde. So I don't have photos to show you of the ruins because I like the roads. Like Mesa Verde is cliff dwellers, but the roads there were a couple times. It's like, look at those white trees all over. Now, I like this one. I like the yellows going to the blues, and I was into dead trees that trip. So I just like the look, but colors can also help you give a sense of place, or no colors. So you can get more textures. You can, and I included that little person out there. It gives you some scale of the environment. And I think I had this in a contest one time, and somebody said, you should have taken every footprint out. Well, how'd that guy get out there? So I'm not one to remove those kind of things. I mean, maybe it makes them more artistic, or maybe you plop him out, but I like the story it tells you when you see people out there.
Looks like he wasn't
Yeah.
alone.
No, I think there are a couple more people down there, and there could even be a little head. I don't know there. So, but they get there with no footprints. So, and showing like the woods and the textures. This cuts it way down, so you're focused on the bark and the shapes of that. This is in, Colorado. Right, we went to Maroon Bells at sunrise, which I cut that one from this, but it's hanging out there. But on the way out, I said, ooh, I like the trees. We're getting the trees. And these cliffs by the water, actually, it's not a cliff. Yeah, so if you look, this is a seashell here. So it's about 6 inches, but I thought, I sort of like the look of this. I like the way the light hit over there and I said, it looked like a cliff. So it's like if I get down low, I bet I can make it look like a cliff. And a lot of people see it and that's what they think. So, just try some creative things when you're,
I've heard that travel photography, 90% of it is taken from chest high. You know, or right here, right in
Yeah.
your face.
Yeah.
Get down on the ground, get up to
Yeah.
the tree, get somewhere, get a different angle and you'll have a different shot than what other.
yeah, and try experiment, try a lot of different things. I mean, this actually is a 2-story barn, but it's, I like to keep things sometimes very simple. So I like this look, just a couple colors, and this is a battlefield, so looks peaceful and makes you think that area was not at one point, but now it is. It's a resting place for so many. So, a simple image can help convey that. And urban landscapes, like to do something a little different when I saw the boat, but include something very recognizable. So if you're telling a story of New York City, you have something people identify right away with. Or in other areas, just different areas of Italy, Switzerland, Singapore. There's some buildings that definitely define that area.
Yeah,
Yes,
like Barcelona.
Singapore has, that I had that in and took that out too. Yeah, that has some crazy architecture, but Singapore does too. It has such wild modern stuff. Yeah, and this is again including someone in more of a urban landscape architecture to kind of give you a different feel and bring you in. This was just 2 people going to some dance and they were standing there. So not posed, and I like the black and white because of the structure of the buildings as well as her textures and all in the dress. So again, takes you into that scene and also capturing at night. This is the landscape in New York at night. Did slower shutter speed to smooth the water a little and get the lights decent. Or Singapore, iconic. That city really livens up at night, and really, really neat colors and architecture. So again, capturing at different times, or quietness in New York. Got off a boat, the moon was full. It's like, well, it looks pretty neat. Plus, you wonder what's going on in all the buildings. Don't look in, I won't zoom in either, but I kind of like the look that gave and the feel that gave of this city. And other moods, like you may go smaller with your architecture. So this is in Calicut in South India, but I like that. This was one when I mentioned like a friend that's like, we're walking around, why are you taking that? Why are you taking that? Because this looks so different to me. It's like there's things I like. I like no park, but it's parked. It could have different rules for motorcycles, and there's a couple modes of transportation. It just tells a lot about that area. Again, then it's going inside. So inside the cathedral, the chapel down in Valley Forge. And we've been doing a lot more like chapels or capitals. And so it's helped me to start working with wide angle lenses to try to capture. Also realize what I can do wrong with a wide angle lens. So, but it's, great architecture. Those last 2 things are within a couple hour drive.
Able to have a tripod in it.
I don't think so, but,
Yeah, many tripods.
and I don't know if I mentioned that when I had the equipment up, but I rarely travel with a tripod. I'm not a tripod kind of guy. I think basically because of the way I like to shoot. And if I set up a tripod and my wife's there, then she's even farther away by the time I take the photo. So I don't like to spend the time doing it. So I will, like even the Singapore picture, that was that was not, I think the New York skyline was, but Singapore was not. But there was a handy railing. So I prop up to anything when I'm going so I can avoid the tripod.
What do you think the mini tripods that you can buy, are they any use in travel or is?
I
it not
think
worth
s-
it?
I think it depends where you are, as long as you can get to a surface that can handle it. I know there's what is it, platypod?
One hooks
It's
on
one.
Yeah, the Gorilla one does. So if that handles your camera and lens, that's decent.
and a beanbag's good.
Yeah, I think platypod, I think, is one that they say that's just like a really flat one that you can kind of take where you can't take other things and just sort of set your camera down. So,
You
I mean-
could strap that down as well.
Can ya? yeah, so they're kind of nice and they're also compact. So if you don't want to travel with your tripod and say, I should have had my tripod, you could pull those out, but I don't generally. So the other challenging things in places like this are you're dealing with low light and you have to compensate for that. And these are on tours. So again, everybody leaves and I'm still there. My wife's explaining, he's back there, he'll be out in a minute. You know, the other thing I like to do is look for shapes and unique things in the architecture. So this one, I really liked it. It's circular, but I was at a different angle so I could make it more like a spiral shape. And I think it just adds a lot of drama to that area of the State House. Yeah, if you haven't, well, I'll save that for later.
How wide's your lens?
This one might have been 14. I have a 14 to 30. And I hardly ever used it, but now I am. With us doing capitals and things, I like that. And I like the shapes and looking for shapes. Looking for more rectangles and looking up through a staircase. I thought that's kind of a cool thing. I like the shape and texture, and that's up at Thomas Edison National Park up in North Jersey. Or arches. India, it's very easy to get arches because they're everywhere. So especially in the older architecture. So they really, really have a neat way of bringing you in. And this, if you don't want to go as far, these arches look very, yeah, it looks very Mideastern, but it's the New York State House. Now, there's no star because it's over 3 hours, but might only be 4. It is definitely worth the trip because that State House is so different. And the way, I think it was designed by 2 different people. So you have different architecture, but it's cool inside.
The Capitol, there's also $1 million stairway that circles around 3 different ways.
Yeah.
And on marble. I saw.
Yeah. I have pictures of that. They're
Now,
not in
you have
here.
People in most of them, do you have to wait a lot or it just seems to be nobody?
The rest of the tour is out ahead and I'm
wait.
behind on some of these. I mean, some like the circular that was up.
Yeah, no, I mean,
So-
people waiting for them.
Yeah, but here it wasn't real busy and the tour had left. But some state houses like this one, Harrisburg, when your tour's over, they say, enjoy yourself and you can wander around all you want. I forget which one we were in, that it's like, when you're done, hit
Yeah.
the road. I forget which one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, it's just the security at that one didn't allow it. Also like shooting through doorways, so sometimes it's neat to say, look at a different, what's happening in that other room. So again, inside also gives you some story about that place. Yeah. And, shop windows, this is Harper's Ferry, but I like doing this one instead of doing outside looking in, do the shop window and giving you a feel for what that street looked like. And again, as we're going closer into work, this is the tobacco over in Lancaster.
Did Amish people smoke?
Yeah,
I don't know if they do, but they grow the tobacco, that's for sure. Yeah, I have even more proof of that one, but this is their barn with that. Yeah, and then again, this is back in the State House, but looking for more details that really add to what that area looks like. That and back to the cathedral, looking,
Bell's back there now.
yeah, it's very peaceful, peaceful, serene kind of feel, where the other was like showing the whole place. And this, looking for things that are unique. So in Fon Hill Castle, if you've never been there, that's one on my list to say. But there is so much interesting stuff in that place. But again, it's like I saw that skull, so it's like I got to figure out a good angle to get him. But I don't know
Who
who's.
has the boats hanging from the ceiling?
Yeah.
There's Spot Hill and there's another one.
Yeah, well,
Museum.
this is where he lived, and the Mercer Museum is where he put all his
I'm just.
artifacts, all his stuff. So I have that on a slide. I think this is the one I mentioned, so
I think it moved. Let's.
I don't know. I think that was there.
You see the outline.
But on a hike again, and I think just the one simple capture also gives you somebody looking at a sense of what time of year did this happen. You have fall leaves and foliage in places like this is in Kerala, but coffee beans, they're growing. So being able to capture the things that, again, some of the foliage that defines an area. This is over at the Wildlife Preserve, but some of the flowers up close. We're hiking in Blue Marsh. I really like these mushrooms.
Mhm.
And sometimes traveling, especially with a camera, makes you more observant, I think. Even though sometimes people say, you're missing the whole area because you're looking through your camera all the time. But I'll get home and my wife will say, well, where were those?
Right.
Like, I didn't see that. So I think that gives you another thing when you're traveling to start looking for these small things or small, bug in longwood. Just a different view of the flowers. And then wildlife too. So you can't miss monkeys in India, and especially South India. They're everywhere. So definitely not a zoo. He was just hanging out in some trees, but looking at that to capture more portraitish of the wildlife, but also defined in that area. We're getting some of the action over at Middle Creek. I kind of like, because the morning we were there was so much activity. So you want to capture the activity. So, freezing that. Or in a zoo, zoo's a great place if you're going to go on some safari or something else. Go to a zoo first and start capturing animals. And when you're in a zoo, try to figure out a way to make it not look like a zoo. So, certain angles, I think that was actually through some glass, but I wasn't laying on the ground for that. And I also like to capture details of an animal. What makes that animal unique?
Still.
Or sea lion, I think. It was a big one. These guys also were not, they were wandering like deer do here. So when we were driving out, they came from the woods. I jumped out for this shot and jumped back in because there were other areas right before this one. I think we hit another one that the elephant was walking down the road and all the cars stop and they all start backing up, and they all back up because they said, you never know.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go by it because you go by a deer and I honk and then they go and go off in the woods. But here, if you go by, they could just swipe and off your vehicle goes. So, but really neat moment between the mother and child elephant. Then I also like to look for silly things that are going on. And this is also, even though there's bars, this is not in a zoo. Yeah, yeah. Not a story in that picture. Yeah. Is he getting something out of the army? Is it saying you're not sleeping? Look at me. I don't know. But I have a lot of monkey shots that have interesting things they're doing. So
So
they do. And yeah, so they're fun. So the other side also is capturing people and culture. Now, looking at portraits, we'll start with portraits and lifestyle. So when you're capturing people, this is in a village in South India. You know, you have a couple ways to think of it. You can either do portraits that you're like really focusing in on the person and blurring out the rest, or in this case, getting some of the environment. And I have some probably better shots to show you of more environmental. But looking at unique features, I like this one in black and white just because of all the textures of her skin as well as the adornments in her nose. But that was in a village too. Now, some things with people photography, some people are not comfortable with people photography and would not walk up to anybody. In the village, I did have some guys that go to the village every now and then to shoot. It was just one of the guys that I had his Airbnb. So for $15 for the Airbnb, I also got a trip to the village. But the folks there are fine with you taking their photos, and they get different people at different times. But you also want to, you know, capture traditional dress. This is also in the village. This too, you know, a little more portrait, a little blurry in the background, but also you can sort of tell what's behind, and the house, even the animal is there. This much more environmental. He was a neat guy. He was a farmer on our organic farm. We went in his house and he gave us samples of things. They made us food, all kinds of things. But I just liked his laid back kind of look, as well as being able to see, because this is a lot of what houses look like there. You know, you don't have a ton of things, but what you have is just sort of there. But I did kind of like his look. I did get to work with some kids that trained in Malakam, it's called. So that's sort of like gymnastics. So did some portrait work with them. So some kind of different looks. And this was one of my favorite from one of my earlier ones, fully automatic, sitting in a boat. And I went, so I wouldn't tip the canoe and took that. But that's one of my favorite portraits from India. I just, yeah, it framed it. And that's some of the things I'd say I really set that up to do that, but I really didn't. I turned around and hoped I didn't fall out the boat. But it did turn out that the framing and all just sort of made that photo. And this was a martial artist. This was looking for available light. It's so dark in these places that as we were doing some things, we were going out, and I said, no, everybody get back and come up one by one into this doorway, because the light was so soft from, I don't even know which direction it was coming, but it wasn't going right into the martial arts. So it just helped enhance the colors, the tones, and his eyes just really pierce. This is in New York, so I didn't only take people there. This was a woman on the street. Now, there were a few of us doing a little workshop on street photography, and she came by, and it's like, oh, her hat's so neat. And this corner was neat. The corner, the colors all take you to her. So they're all the things as you're trying to get people shots, what you're looking for. You know, and don't miss also your reenactors at places, because their history, they can give you sense of history when you're visiting. This is at Mount Vernon. And look for ways to frame them and light to make them, to really bring that out and the character out. And this is over at World War II weekend. I kind of just liked him that you could sort of see the blood bank, but his portrait.
1942.
Yeah, I did put the colors down on that one so I could make it a little more nostalgic or whatever, if you will.
Mhm.
And as he was standing, he had such a neat look. And there was this flag that was flapping in the wind. So I waited for that one to get behind him. And it went and I got it. And I like that look. And it sets it up for the area and what it's all about. But Civil War encampment. Also look for performances. So this is just wholly fair. So if you want, well, we'll talk about that later. But, performances, people doing their thing. I really liked his kind of expression and body language. In India, this was a dance one that we went to. And also just trying to capture them in the right timing, the right, positions and looking for that. Yeah.
Question about when you're traveling to places, do you take notes of what things are? Like you got the name of this place here. I know when I did my traveling to Africa and when I was in Europe and stuff, I had a little journal, like a little thing. I mean, this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
Shoot slides, but today you can just talk on your cell phone. That was what I was gonna recommend.
Yeah.
Is that if you do stuff, if you have the time when you took the photo and the time when you made that note in your thing, you can always go back later and
Yeah.
correlate them together.
Camera tells you.
Yeah, that is a good way to do that.
Repeat that. for a second.
Yeah, so the point was, do I make notes as I'm traveling? Because a lot of these places I say where it was, and I do make some, but Dave also said that he sometimes records things into his phone so that, or keeps a journal so that the phone, especially the times on the phones and dates, can correlate to the photos and you can kind of match them up. I mean, what I often do, because I do Facebook a lot, is I'll try to do that close to when I'm doing something. And Facebook albums often become, for me, my documentation, which technically that's how I went back and found the name. I went back to the post and said, because I'll do a post a day and try to write, and that's almost like my journal, where we were and what we did. And then that goes along with the photos.
Signs of, pictures of signs.
Yeah, that's a,
That
Shield signs, whatever.
yeah, that's something I haven't done as much as I should. And as I was preparing for this tonight, I was watching a couple people on travel photography, and it's like, I don't think of the sign because you're trying to have a neat angle to do that.
I
And
started in photography, it was slides.
yeah,
Frugal photographer, you only shoot.
A movie that I don't think we've seen.
But this,
With Cumberbatch.
The next presentation.
Surprised we haven't seen it, but it might be.
I know, it just appeared and it looks like I think it's a new movie.
first interaction of people with the performer, or
Watch a little bit of it tonight and tomorrow.
Somebody's
not muted.
ask them if they.
This guy's
Question.
sort of droning on a little bit, put me to sleep.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Oh, about,
Yeah.
general question of taking pictures of people in other countries. Do you typically ask for permission to take a picture or or are there times where you just snap a picture? Considering.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question was, do I usually, especially in foreign countries, ask before I take a photo, or do I just take them of people? And I would say it's a mix. If I want to capture a moment or they're farther from me, that we wouldn't interact, I would probably just snap it. In this case, I was moving around to take these kids because they were so into him making the drinks that I thought, you don't want to ask, or all of a sudden that moment's gone. But I did take it and then I interacted with them and they really wanted to talk because they wanted to try English. But then they realized I'm a American English and not British English. And it's like, I don't understand this guy. Yeah. So you realize,
Vocabulary.
yeah, you do realize that, but yeah, so it's probably, it's a mix. It depends on the people like that. Or like this, I did not ask because this was just a moment. I thought it was kind of a neat moment with them traveling in. But I also liked, I mean, the color's nice, but also in India, like social media is so big. Everybody's doing their photo everywhere and they're all looking and they do the arm and look up and this and that. So I just thought it was neat to capture them doing their photo shoot, if you will, on the street. Also capturing people working. Yeah, he was key maker and here the craftsman doing his carving, ice carvings. Yeah, and a salesman. So just trying to capture people and what they do in a place. This was a doctor, Ayurvedic doctor. Kid came in with a sprained ankle and so I said, okay, do you mind?
Or is that a prop?
Looks like it's.
This is, well, no, this is what he propped it up so that he could wrap the foot.
Use that for crutch or something.
I forget if he went out on a crutch or not. You know, the fishermen trying to capture that or people doing the farm. Yeah, these are the people that were filling the barn. Also like to capture people spiritually. So then how do they do their worshiping? You know, whether it was in that case Hindu, this Muslim, a Buddhist, and back to Hindu, a Hindu ceremony. So capturing those and marketplaces, a lot of culture when you're dealing with foods. And it's kind of neat when you put them together and look how, you know, similar things, similar activities, but how does that look in these different places? Now here a little bit more orderly, and in India, these are the vegetables that they have, or the fish markets. You know, in Singapore, all the fresh fish, or it can't get fresher than buying right from the beach. But Barcelona, a lot different look. And the butchers, you know, this cleaning a fish, or these are butchers in a small meat stall in India, you know, wouldn't pass our regulation as if you look close, the knives are in the toes and they're just kind of propped up there, but it was a good lunch and it does get cooked, so. And flower markets here versus flower markets in India. Like huge crowd, everybody bargaining, flowers everywhere, you know, so that's another place to capture culture as well as festivals. You know, festivals are really different. These are all from India. Really wanted to do TAM and we found 2 of them. So neat, really neat color. I like to get the interactions of people, the TAM figure, if you will, with one of the people there, or got there early in the morning. So the preparations for that and the face painting. And also the joy and excitement. You know, you want to capture the crowd at those things. And this was we were driving somewhere else and there's festivals everywhere. So temple festival, in comes an elephant, you know, and the drums are playing and the elephants, you know, really made up. So, and you're right there and a wedding celebration, you know, and the joy and excitement in that. And one thing with things, and this is where you are a participant, Yeah, this goes a long way to dress appropriate and just be part of the group.
Yeah.
Well, then
And in fact, yeah, I went in India, but I said, okay, the two of us dressed a little more Indian than the others. I said, I felt a little more Indian than the rest of the people. Another thing is to work on street photography and things to tell stories of everyday life, and what goes on in the streets. And, these were kids on a back street, did more street photography in New York. I kind of like this, that he's working and back here is a guy working on his laptop, so a street person, doing that, or just different sights you see.
Feeding your pigeon.
Yeah, I like this because he's looking at me, but these people are obviously not going to give him eye contact. This guy is giving eye contact from behind because he's not sure what he's doing. So when you're doing the street photography, it's really capturing what's going on. Obviously, she's looking, but not going to listen to what he has to say. Are these guys eating a lunch? I just thought that was kind of neat with their dress to their fineness, kind of. Yeah. Or the interaction of somebody two spiritual, like, backgrounds together. Or definitely storytelling.
That's an essential part.
Yeah, and this one I like just because of a message it has, with the racial tensions and everything else going on. His t-shirt says pray. Yeah. So, when you're out, people photography, don't forget who you're traveling with. So again, this is usually my wife way off in front. But also look for ways to capture them that puts them in that environment. Might be a little different portrait work. Or my son, not the best expression of him, but I like the gray tones and the yellows. That just kind of caught me after I took it. I said, I like this. And this was in Costa Rica. We were on a yoga retreat and went through a deserted hotel that was all graffitied, but it's like, you know what? So we had a small photo shoot there. And a friend in Mumbai saw the roots. So look for things to put the people that you're traveling with into. Look for light. That helps. This is down at Hopewell. Friend from India was visiting there, so.
A little Indian with him.
Yeah. Well, the folks I took over there are, one's coming back next week. So, yeah. And so some ideas when you're out shooting, to work on your photography, and like you were saying, look at different angles. So this, I wanted to highlight the cobblestones. And in New York, looking up through the vessel. That's a really neat structure up there. Yeah.
New Yorkers look down.
You can't.
Yeah, well, I look up.
Yeah.
No, you can go in the base. I don't know if the base is closed. Yeah, you can't go up. And that's why this one is down looking up. Or take angles. That's at the vessel in New York. It's actually where our bus is going to drop us off if you do the hour bus. Yeah. This, just an angle looking down gives you a different feel. You're observing what they're doing. Using framing, creates different interest in your shots, kind of different of India or a portrait. This is a boy who had an ice cream truck or cart, I would say, along the beach, and just kind of like framing him and his ice cream kind of brings that out. Or looking for light to isolate your subject. So really light was coming in and could catch what he was painting. Or using your depth of field to isolate to show what he was working on in his finished product. Now using different shutter speeds to work on motion, to show some motion. Again, no propped on a railing because I could only go so low, but or fast shutter speeds to capture backflips in action. So or mix shutters or mixed. This one is actually fast shutter speeds, but blended to give a series of looks of him going through his thing. But I used that for a few times while traveling too with the martial arts folks. Now, aerial views, if you can get up, this was in a hot air balloon, but textures of the ground of the area, Napa Valley, and the fog in the morning give a different feel and overview. And using burst mode, I use burst mode a lot with if there's people around or animals around to try to do it to get, I wanted him, he was cleaning his paws and it's like, I want to get that. So I forget how many frames a second, but that's the frames a second. And there are a couple I like in there. But I use software that I found recently, Photo Mechanic. I don't know if others use that. But if you take a lot of photos, it's real nice because I use that as a step before Lightroom because it uses the embedded previews. So you can bring it up, bring all your images in and go through them very fast compared to Lightroom.
But yeah, Photo Mechanics got a good reputation.
Yeah, it'll go through quick and then you can rate them and pull the ones that you want into Lightroom. Now you can use intentional camera movement to do some creative work for more abstracts, or these are just pebbles in water, or over at Middle Creek, just to create more of an abstract sort of look, but got behind a tree at sunrise to capture all the different layers of the birds. And when you're out, one recommendation, don't delete from your camera as you're going. Like hang on to it and you never know. That photo has become one of my favorites. And one thing with, I shoot raw and sometimes I wondered why, what is the big deal? So I went back when I prepared this slide to say, I have the JPEG out there, let me get that, and tried to recover that. So a difference when I tried to bring out anything I could from the JPEG was this. From the raw, you could bring out a whole lot more color and texture in him. It's still overblown, but I like the look it gave. And it's overblown because it was a mistake. I walked out of an area and yeah, and it was too bright outside. So another idea is capture themes. So when you're out shooting, especially sometimes when you're in a new area, or maybe you want to say, there's things I want to capture, or maybe I have no idea what I want to capture. And so I need some ideas to just start. So you can look at things like doors, and maybe these are things you collect. Later you put them all together to be doors of areas or ceilings. Like there's a lot of interesting things. And when you're in new places, sometimes there are places to start, lights. And when I went back through my stuff, it's like, I have a lot of these, so I must just sort of do that, or I like views through doorways, so just again, some different themes you can use while you're traveling to give you ideas, especially if you're sort of stuck. Or if you want to just capture details like the foods of areas, colors, maybe a color theme, maybe you want to do orange wherever you are, or the more purpley kind of colors, or lines and shapes are things you can look for. And patterns, patterns in things and repetition of objects. They can sometimes create a creative shot. Reflections that may make you question what exactly are you looking at. They're fun to take. Looking for light and shadows and how that affects the environment. So again, just ideas as you're traveling, what to kind of look for to enhance the story you're trying to tell. Or textures, in this case, textures. I do like textures. I look back and it's like, I don't have a lot of tree bark, but textures on tree bark and things like that are interesting. Another idea is create a project. So maybe you want to focus on a certain thing. In India, I wanted to do something around faith because there's so many different connections in spirituality. But that one didn't happen because I realized, though I took a bunch and I showed you a few, a lot of places restrict photography. A lot of places, especially the Hindu temples, even restrict non-Hindus. So between that being restricted from areas and also not being able to, or not feeling comfortable taking people shots, that restricted that. But what I did do was work on some martial arts. And so I did a number of shoots. I did actually, oops, I think I went beyond that night. I shot, it was a personal passion project for me. So I shot with 20 different martial arts schools, 36 sessions, 65 hours, and 15,000 photos. So I spent a lot of time doing this. We were working on a book. I'm not sure that that's ever going to happen. But that was, it was different challenges. I had to work on how to capture things. I had to work on timing and how to get people at certain things. We worked on angles. They buried me in the sand for this one, basically. Wasn't a good idea. Lots of sand flew on me. I was laying on the ground. Just a lot of different ways to capture things. On the beaches. It's another one of those through the door shots. We're really looking. He you saw before, but he has such intense eyes. So trying to capture that as they're doing their practices. Also learned a lot about doing low light action stuff, because that is not exactly easy because these are not bright places. And this, I just left this in to show you my lighting crew. So I carried two little loom cubes and they did a lot of my lighting. And that's, the result of that. So I don't carry equipment because I can't, but those help enhance. We did things on waterfalls. We went to beaches and had the opportunity. She's was 78 when I took this. She's 82 now and still practicing, but it was a neat opportunity, even if we never do a book, to have the chance to meet people. And it was all during doing photography that got me connected, because she was honored by the government. I think she has the 4th highest civilian award. So I had some neat chances, and these, I think, mentioned in the newsletter that these images are used on advertising on their websites. There's signs at the collieries that have my photos on. That's actually the Internet Movie Database, IMDb. I was excited one day because I was looking him up. He's a Chile actor from Chile, and my photos are on IMDb. So that was like kind of cool. I don't go for big contests and awards, but when stuff like that happens, it's just like really neat that people are using it. Also was in the Hindu newspaper. So some of my images, they called and asked for a little short interview. And so that's the 2nd largest newspaper in India. So that was kind of cool, as well as I am in a book that was published in Poland. So you never know where your project's gonna go. And finally, capturing an experience. So another thing is capturing photos that help you tell a story or a travel log. So these are some of the photos that I would use to talk about this festival. it's an interesting festival. Here we're entering it. It was probably the most intense thing I ever photographed. These oracles are dressed in red. They carry the sickles. They get in a trance. People follow them in. And it's to worship or observe the god Kali, the goddess Kali. So there's so much activity happening. So the photos are trying to show that kind of activity. The trance-like nature of the people carrying the sickles. They actually hit their heads with them and start to bleed. So that's some of what they're doing. You can see the crowds and they're climbing up this thing to light the candles and also throw out bananas to the crowd. They were bananas that were offered to the goddess and then they're offered to the people. So I was just trying to capture that sense of what was happening to tell this story, slightly quieter moments looking at the flames, but also, and this was a way they worship by throwing rice on this structure. He came in, when I went to photograph him, basically it was hard to even put your camera up because you can see the people and where arms are there and you're in there. So just again, trying to capture that trance-like kind of feel as well as the people attending, and what they do. This was some of the behind the scenes, but this was not the busy day of the festival. This was like an early predecessor, but these people come and they'll stay, they'll stay for days, but there's dancing, there's singing, the instruments are going, the sticks are playing. So just again, trying to capture a lot of things that I could start telling that and put into more of a travel log. And the final photo I have from that is one of my favorite just because it captured it all for me in a photo, because you see the sticks, you see this, you see they're pretty well up front, but also the eyes are on me. So that's pretty intense to me and captured my experience. So again, when you're at a place, maybe like the projects are an idea and that could span multiple trips, or a specific experience is a good thing to kind of think about. What do I want to do while I'm traveling? So finally, the other thing to develop your photography, find some new places to explore. So Shanks Ferry Wildlife over near Lancaster, about an hour from here. Harper's Ferry, neat place to do some landscapes as well as historic inside type shots. That's 2.5 hours. This is about an hour and a half. This is where we're going in June. So if you haven't signed up yet, sign up. Neatest Indian architecture you can get without going to India. Jim Thorpe, neat for churches, indoor buildings, jails, trains. That's a neat place. That's just an hour and 10 minutes north. Pool Forge, about 23 minutes from here. Neat place, small place, but neat for people, for structures, for wildlife.
If you go to Bull Forge, right there by the covered bridge, the Amish hook their horses up right over there to the right, and then they go down the creek
Okay.
and they picnic there. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really neat place. Ricketts Glen, you have some nice, especially I like it, especially in the fall because of the colors. Harrisburg, definitely visit the State House there, neat place. This is we did something near, we did what other sites are near Harrisburg, and this place, Hunter Mansion, is not too far away, and that's kind of neat. Neat old structure. This is what we were talking about, Fonthill Castle, Mercer Museum and the Pottery and Tile Works.
One with the boats, is that Mercer?
Yes, this is Mercer Museum. So if you like to take photos of stuff, he has a collection of all these kind of artifacts. The castle itself, really neat at Christmas. A bunch of the rooms each has their own theme tree. That's really neat to see. There's also the pottery works because Mercer did tile work. So the pottery and tile works is there too.
Castle, sometimes they rent it out, so call ahead to make sure it's.
Oh, okay.
Jeff, another thing too, I mean, over here in the house and everything, like, was that the one that was made completely out of concrete?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
museum was
I think both are.
really.
Yeah,
Because he wanted it to be preserved,
yeah.
everything in it.
Yeah, I think something burned in the museum at one point and then he redid it totally concrete. But I think the castle itself was always concrete and tile. And Edison National Historic Site, that's a neat one. That's outside of New York, West Orange, New Jersey. Factory, and neat to learn about him. You cannot photograph in the house, so it's something to be aware of. Holy Fair, if you want to do people photos, that's a great place to do it. If you want to do it and not feel funny about doing it, watch the newsletter, and when we sign people up to volunteer to help at the Holy Fair, you wear a badge and then it's okay. You're sort of press, but not exactly. The photographs go back to the fair committee to put their books and advertisements together. But
Yeah,
great place for stuff and people.
interesting thing there, that bottom picture there, in the middle, that's my cousin.
Oh, is it the ventriloquist?
She's a ventriloquist.
Yeah, she does a nice job. She's there almost every year. Arts on the Avenue, another neat place for just kind of street photography of people and people with stands. World War II weekend for people, planes, if you like that kind of thing. So all these places are nearby. Doesn't take you that long to get to, gives you opportunity to try things, especially if you're going to go somewhere else. Start at home. And again, sometimes I think, we forget that our place and things that seem common to us, I think of this a lot because a lot of followers in that are from India. This is so different than what they're used to. So it's a way to present our own area. You can practice and others can see what it's like to live here. And then finally, sharing your experience, a variety of ways through social media, prints, photo books, make a slideshow of your shots or do a presentation and let Jay know. I'll put in a plug for him, but I do like Facebook. I know a lot of people don't, but I create an album and a post for every day, as I mentioned, and I can go back there and I can look. And I have things that I considered some of the best things that I wanted to share with others, but to look at my trip. So that's another neat way to do that, or Instagram, and good ways to connect to others. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
230 slides.
Jeff,
Yeah.
that was chock full of ideas, that's for sure.
Well, I hope it gave some decent ideas for you to think about. We'll go back to
Let's stop
sharing,
here.
or did we?
Jeff, I have a question.
Jeff, that was excellent. Wonderful coverage of the topic and gorgeous photos, some real prize winners. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, you put in a lot of time for that, Jeff. Thank you. I mean, very well in depth and lots of great ideas. I think I'm gonna go back myself and review it.
It is a lot of things. I took a lot of things out actually, so it was hard. I mean, travel photography, I think the one thing I learned was it's so broad. where do you focus? Because it's not just one topic, so hopefully I gave a lot of ideas that you can think about, you can research, and that helps you in that.
Ask Vince where he's traveling.
He looks like he's at home unless
Yeah, he
his
does.
background.
So
Are you home yet?
Vince.
Oh, you're muted,
Muted,
Vince.
Vince.
And
Yeah,
Jay, you,
he's at home.
yep, I think he's still muted.
Yes,
Still muted.
let him know he doesn't know.
Oh, what was that? I'm sorry.
We wondered if you're really home or if the background is fake.
No, I am home.
Ah,
I was on my way in, I was planning to be there tonight in person, but, something came up at home and I had to stay home and, tune in this way. But it was great.
welcome home.
Yeah, ask him if Lee's in the States.
They stopped before.
Yeah, I think he is.
Yes, Lee is, in the States and he'll be there for the cathedral on May 18 and for the talk on May 21 or thereabouts that Monday.
Can we
He's
do
out
that?
west.
Oh,
He's posting Southwest, day 3.